yesterday, Asha put this question to me about in post-colonial studies and post-colonial theory, our preoccupation has always been with the objects we encounter, the books we read, the artifacts we come across. But what does it mean to be a post-colonial subject? Coming back to the question of subjectivity with which we ended the last discussion. I think in asking that question, you were wanting us to think a little bit more clearly about what it means for all of the participants in this workshop to consider what sort of readers they are in a post-colonial time. What sort of interpretation they bring to bear on the things they read, because we work very hard at denaturalizing texts and trying to establish the right contexts for texts, and that's, as far as I understand, the bulk of this project is in trying to identify a variety of discrete conditions for in which texts occur. But who are we? Should we not try and denaturalize ourselves a little bit? To try and think about how peculiar or how contextual our own approach to a text is. So I'm taking that as the starting point for what are really a set of rambling conjectures. And I'm putting this glass this moment because it really helps me to think. So in order to answer or begin to engage with that question, we have to first ask ourselves what it means to be post-colonial. And part of the problem in scholarship in this theoretical field has been that we take post-coloniality to refer generally to everything that ensues in this country from the moment of our contact with imperialism. So we take colonial encounter as the paradigmatic moment at which we become post-colonial. But the problem with this version is that in our own South Asian encounter, colonial encounter, we are not attentive enough to the historical variety that is characteristic of this encounter, of the variety, the ways in which colonialism itself changed form. And addressing that question is important because it will make a difference to the way in which all of us in this present moment start to think of ourselves as post-colonial, since that is what we are trying to do. Now, that's really what I want to focus on, the kind of post-coloniality that is most relevant to who we are today. But in order to establish that, just in very broad brush strokes, in much scholarship on the field, we see the 19th century as the moment at which we became post-colonial. But much of our scholarship is focused on the 19th century. We forget, at the very least, that there was a late 18th, 19th century, early 19th century version, which is when Orientalism proper happened. And that was a very different moment in the imperial enterprise because it was company life. It was actually a very different style of encounter. not akin to the sort of encounters that had been happening perennially on the Indian Ocean. So I think we don't credit the fact that that 18th century, early 19th century moment of colonial encounter, which is the moment for Orientalism proper, which shapes these texts with which we are concerned in one incarnation, was something conducted by a group of really disreputable traders, and they did not have the command over the text that imperialism proper would establish. They did not have the cultural command, the cultural authority. They were not well regarded as intellectuals in the imperial metropolis. Just to give you one example, in Vanity Fair, the first suitor to be rejected is a man from the company. They drank a lot, they married local women, they went native constantly. They constantly went native, and the Charter Act, which increased the involvement of the Crown in the colony, was an attempt to bring company officials to heel. So whatever cultural interaction happened at that time, when we go back to the question of Orientalism, we have to remember what a disreputable and ad hoc venture it was, and how much the Orientalists who participated in that undid themselves. So there was no violence per se being done to tradition. And they were neither taken very seriously at home and not taken very seriously in the colony. They just generated these resources randomly. That's one version. The 19th century version is another one, when the state starts to intervene, starts to decide what texts should be read, what texts should not be read, and how they should be read, and even if they are read, whether they should find articulation in the business of the colonial administration, so that you could read what you wanted to, but it was not essential. The reading of your own literature was to be kept aside in your participation in the business of colonial administration. It was it became privatized. That's a totally different moment. And there was conflict, but there was accommodation. Just want to put all of that aside. I think we are shaped by all of these colonialism. We become post-colonial after the 18th century, we become post-colonial after the 19th century. But I think far more interesting, and I do believe this is the moment that shapes us most profoundly, is something that happened in 1900. And Virginia Woolf wrote an essay once where she says, in 1910 human nature changed. And she's referring to an art exhibition. But really in 1900, human nature changed because of a shift in the nature of colonialism.